Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast and increase your financial wisdom. You will find episodes about investments, the infinite banking concept, how to fight inflation, the financial side of retirement, and financial questions Jesse asked his girlfriend. Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast on any podcast platform or watch it on YouTube. There are new episodes of the Wealth Talks podcast weekly. Search for Wealth Talks podcast online and subscribe for free.
At FurnitureMadeInUSA.com, we provide beautiful chairs, rockers, stools, and tables handcrafted by skilled American artisans in North Carolina since 1924. With every purchase, you're supporting American businesses, American workers, and their families. Don't just buy furniture. Invest in a piece of American history. Shop now at FurnitureMadeInUSA.com.
Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, that is right, my friends, and I want to welcome those of you who may be listening today for the first time to my voice on your local radio station, KBNP in Portland. It's my great pleasure to be here joining you today, and I'm glad that you've jumped on here with us. I'm Todd Huff, the host of Conservative Not Bitter Talk, which of course can be found here at the Todd Huff Show. And I welcome you. I welcome those of you that have been listening to us for the past, maybe up to nearly 10 years now, which is hard to believe. Got lots of things I want to get to today. I want to start by talking about this magical pen, Biden's magical pen. That is something that we're going to talk about today. Trump now declaring these pardons, these preemptive pardons that were put into place by Biden, or the one who wielded the magical auto pen in the previous administration. Trump has declared those null and void. Buckle up for what we're about to enter into here, my friends. By the way, I put a page up on our website called The Stack of Stuff. And you can go to our website and you can see anything that we are talking about. I mean, sometimes I may forget something there, but it's got links to the articles, the sound bites that we will get to during the program. ToddHuffShow.com is the website. Just go to the stack of stuff. If something I referenced is something you want to take more of a look at, you can find it there. All right, my friends. Before we get rocking and rolling too far along here, if you love seafood, I mean real seafood, you've got to check out Kenai Fish. They are a family-owned and operated company that delivers wild-caught, my friends, Alaskan seafood straight to your door. They have salmon, sockeye, coho, king salmon that is harvested from the pristine Kenai and Castleoff rivers. It's vacuum sealed. It's shipped next day air to lock in that fresh, just-caught flavor. But it doesn't just stop there, my friends. They've got halibut from the Gulf of Alaska. It's mild, it's sweet, it's perfect for any recipe. And their shellfish, well, they've got king crab, snow crab, scallops. It's the best Alaska has to offer. And you can get it delivered to your home, to your business, wherever, quickly, and it's incredibly fresh. Kenai Fish is about quality, it's about sustainability, and it's about supporting hardworking fishermen. Go to KenaiFish.com, and here's how you spell that website, Kenai. Kenai is how you spell Kenai, KenaiFish.com. Use my name, Todd, and you will save 15% on your order. That's Kenai Fish.com, promo code Todd. You'll taste the difference, my friends, and you'll be hooked. All right, so let's get to this story here. This developing story about the magical pen the magical autopen that was wielded by the Biden administration. Now, this is something I think we alluded to this. I think Oz might have to keep me in check here, but I think we alluded to this maybe last week. Trump was definitely out there talking about this last week. I had certainly read articles about this last week, and Trump was at the podium. This was, I believe, on Thursday, talking about this very thing. And here's what Trump had to say about this last week.
Crooked Joe Biden got us into a real mess with Russia and everything else he did, frankly, but he didn't know about it. And he, generally speaking, signed it with autopen. So how would he know? That autopen is a big deal. I don't know. You know, they're having, who's doing this? So when my people come up, Will and all of the people, Steve, they come up and, sir, this is an executive order. They explain it to me. And, 90% of the time I sign it. 99% of the time I say do it. But they come up and I sign it. But you don't use autopen. It's, number one, it's disrespectful to the office. Number two, maybe it's not even valid because, who's getting him to sign? He had no idea what the hell he was doing. If he did, all of these bad things wouldn't be happening.
All right, so that's what Trump had to say about this last week. Now, this story has further developed. In fact, it developed further early this morning, right after midnight this morning. Trump basically, where is it? Here we go. I'm jumping a little bit out of order because I just want to make sure I paint the full picture, and then I'm going to go back and talk about a couple of these things. Headline at the New York Post. This is early this morning. By the way, happy St. Patrick's Day. Today is St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Trump says Biden's autopen pardons are now void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. Vows probe of January 6th House Select Committee. All right, so we're going to dig into this, but here's what Trump posted on his social media platform, Truth Social. He posted this just after midnight this morning on St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to read this in its entirety. It's not too long, but here's what it says. The pardons, in quotations, that sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared, here now we get to the all caps, void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. The all caps end at this point because of the fact that they were done by autopen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to nor approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the unselect committee who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people should fully understand that they are subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, again, this is Trump's Truth Social post, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. Today's Todd Talk, I do a 60-second little feature that airs on some radio stations. We post it on our website. We'll share it on social media. I actually said in today's Todd Talk, of course, a little tongue-in-cheek, that maybe Biden wasn't as bad of a president as we thought. Maybe he wasn't, because after all, he may not have been the person signing all of the documents, all of the executive orders. According to reports, almost everything was signed by the autopen. What's interesting is the only thing that wasn't had pertained to his announcement that he wasn't going to seek the presidency or seek re-election, which is interesting. Of all the things to be signed by him, that was the one that wasn't done by autopen. Now, I'm not an expert in this. Oz and I were talking about this earlier this morning. But think of this like, if any of you have ever used a like a contract management software system, or if you've just endorsed papers electronically, you can sit down at your computer, and sometimes it requires, if you're on your iPad or something like that, for you to sign with your finger or the digital pen or whatever. And sometimes you can just type your name and it puts it in, a nice, neat little cursive font or whatever. But then there's a box underneath and it says, by checking this, I endorse or I certify that I'm the one signing the document or something along. It's some legalese, right? Something saying I'm the one. This is a binding signature. Even though I typed it into my keypad, this is a binding signature. I am agreeing to this. The concept of signing something with your name, handwritten signature, is that you give your approval of the terms and the conditions stated within that document. When you move to something that is digital, of course, if you've got the ability to sign with your finger, it kind of serves the same purpose. But if you've got the capability where you're typing in letters, or potentially now you've got another problem that arises. Your signature can be matched to you, right? There's these signature verification experts. In fact, if you've ever had an interest, or maybe you've been one who's collected signatures of famous athletes or celebrities or presidents, you'll see sometimes on these shows where they're determining the value of a product, they'll bring in handwriting experts and they'll compare the signatures and they'll say, oh yes, this looks like Mickey Mantle's signature because Mickey wrote his M's like this. He applied more pressure here. He dotted his I like this. His Y kind of tailed off. Yep, it looks like a match. I can say that with 95% certainty, or however they talk in the industry, right? Well, you move to the electronic signature world, and even if I know that there's one document that I use, and it saves my signature. It's a signature that I had written with my finger, but it saves that file, and I can insert it into each document that I want to insert it into. The problem now becomes, okay, what happens if that signature is saved on a computer, saved on some sort of a system, saved in the autopen, where they're just clicking buttons and checking boxes? What happens if the person that's logging in and operating the insertion of signatures, what if that person is not authorized to do it? Now, I don't know all the ins and outs. I've heard people talking about fingerprints. I don't know. It's got me thinking back to Weekend at Bernie's, to be quite honest, when those folks had poor Bernie propped up and were acting like Bernie was doing things that whole weekend. I just wonder, how did this happen? And so there's legitimate questions about this. I'm going to get into this deeper. There's lots of things I want to talk to about concerning about this today. And one of those things is how did we get here to begin with? So pause that whole discussion of auto pens and who has access and all this. Let us begin to discuss how we got here to begin with. So I've kind of painted the picture of how this magical pen came into existence and how it was used in the administration. According to reports, again, was used on virtually everything Biden had to sign, with some exceptions from what we're being told. And again, I don't have firsthand access to this. I have the information reported to me just like you have it reported to you. So that could be incorrect at some point. But I do want to compare and contrast. You think about all these times you've seen Trump sitting at a desk and someone handing him an executive order and saying, Mr. President, this is executive order 116372 or whatever it is. This executive order creates this whatever. This is a declaring that Hamas is a terrorist organization, or that criminal Tren de Aragua is now a deemed a terrorist organization, or whatever it is. And then the president grabs his big pen Sharpie deal and he signs it. And then he turns it around for the media and he holds it there. Now, I would just ask you, do you remember anything like this happening with Biden? I remember on occasion there might be children around him or people around him at a desk, probably sniffing their hair, and he would sign something, but it was not common. In fact, they hid the guy, right? They hid President Joe Biden from the American people for 4 years. They hid him the entire time for reasons that we were screaming. We don't scream on this program. We're conservative, not bitter. But, I mean, we were trying to illustrate this to anyone who wants to listen. You, of course, were trying to do the same thing because they lied about Biden's fitness for office. And so we've got this scenario where you can see bad things are possible. So I want to pause the whole PIN discussion, and I just want to talk about how we got here to begin with, because this is worth noting, my friends. This is absolutely worth noting. Now, I'm going to pause you, though, because I have to take a little breather here, according to my clock. And I want to ask you, my friends, I want to remind you of the mission of this program. We are here. This program exists to help others hear and receive truth. We share faith, freedom, common sense, and we're taking things now to the next level. You know, you may be hearing my voice in Portland, Oregon for the first time. We've got other stations that we're expanding into or looking to expand into as well. And what's made this possible is that we've recently started distributing the show over satellite. That's just a technical back-end thing for the program, but it's a good step for the growth of this program, because now this show is available to virtually any station in the country that would want to carry it, which, of course, who wouldn't want to carry it? So as I thought about this and I thought about where we are with the development of this program and what is coming next as we're growing and trying to do more things, I wanted to give you the opportunity to become a founding member of our membership program that's called the Inner Circle. The Inner Circle is, to get a lifetime membership. You'll pay a membership fee once for life. $99 is all that is. You'll be a founding member of the Inner Circle. This is something we've been planning for some time, and we plan on launching this later in the spring. It's a limited time offer to become a founding member of the program, and it's going to officially launch later in the spring. But as a member, you're going to get exclusive content, behind-the-scenes updates, live video chats with me, even a personal welcome phone call from me if you select the one-time investment option. So we're looking to get just, 30, 50 members to join today to help us build the program. If you're interested in that, you can text the word JOIN, 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 that phone number, 317-210-2830. Again, text the word JOIN to 317-210-2830, or simply visit toddhuffshow.com/join to secure your spot today. Let's grow this thing together, my friends. Let's make an impact for the conservative movement that lasts and that helps pass along these conservative principles to the next generation. All right. So that being said, let us recall how we got to this mess. We had a mentally absent president. Now, they acted at the time like we were insane for even mentioning these things. Biden's long been a gaffe machine, but what Biden turned into during his campaign for 2020, it was much worse than simple gaffes. Biden was demonstrating some very, very serious signs that he was not mentally fit for office. This was back in the campaign for 2020. I remember talking about this. I remember you talking about this. I remember seeing things on social media. I remember the concerns. The media just brushed this off. In fact, the media would often compare and contrast the mental fitness of President Biden, at the time it would have been candidate Biden, and President Trump. In fact, the media would even insinuate that President Trump's mental fitness was much more concerning than that of Joseph Robinette bribery. And so this make-believe narrative was what carried us through the 2020 election. And not enough people understood and knew the degree of Joe Biden's mental decline. Now, there have been reports. Well, let me pause, because they went 4 years through this. Pretending like Joe Biden was a mental superstar. They went 4 years through this campaign pretending like the guy was the most ingenious individual to ever occupy the Oval Office. I mean, you'll remember listening to people like Karine Jean-Pierre tell us that she was basically afraid to go in there and talk to Biden because he was so quick, so just rapid fire questions. You better be on your toes when you walked in there. You might remember Alejandro Mayorkas out there defending the president's mental fitness, or Nancy Pelosi talking about just how amazing, how just rapid fire ingenious this president was. That all was happening for a specific reason. One, because there were obvious declines in his presidency, so bad that the media could no longer just kind of shrug them off. Yes, he tipped over on the bike, fell over somehow on a virtually stationary bike. He tripped and face planted on the stage at the Air Force Academy after a speech. He fell going up the stairs to Air Force One several times. And then, of course, he had a lot of gaffes and freezes and pauses during his very limited appearances before the media and that sort of thing. Questions that he might have been asked and butchered the response and so forth. He forgot what the Declaration of Independence was called. I mean, all sorts of things like this. But the place and time that this all changed, when they stopped defending him, was, of course, during his one and only debate with President Trump. And it was atrocious. They realized once they got out of that debate, it took a couple of days because they tried to defend him. This is what the left does, by the way. They say, we don't care what happened. What we care is, can we spin it in such a way that we can survive this? Because they had made the decision. They made this decision previously back in 2020. They had the power brokers of the Democrat Party, all the people who really make the decisions for the Democrat Party. Some of them you know, some of them you might not know. They got together and they said the one person that we believe can beat Donald Trump is Joseph Robinette Bribery, and we will make sure that he gets nominated. And they started making phone calls. That's why they called Mayor Pete and they said, hey, if you drop out of the race, we'll make sure that we take care of you. You know, you've got a good future. In fact, Mayor Pete's name is still being kicked around as a potential candidate here in 2028. They called Amy Klobuchar. They called all these people. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was the one that they were concerned with. They didn't want Bernie to split the Democrat vote, send this thing to a contested convention, and have all these angry socialists at the convention being told that Biden was going to be their guy or some other candidate was going to be their guy and not Bernie Sanders. They didn't want to risk that, so they wanted to cut this off at the pass. This was after the South Carolina primary in 2020, but before Super Tuesday. This is what they did. They made their decisions. And this is what I want to hammer home before the break, and I'm up against the clock. They, the Democrat Party, they, the media, they 100% knew just how bad Biden was from a cognitive perspective in 2020 when they made these decisions, and they did not care. They did not care that they were giving me, a nominee and an eventual president that is completely incapable of having the awareness and the acuity to be president and commander-in-chief. And I've got to take a break, my friends. Sit tight. You're listening here to the home of conservative, not bitter talk. I am your host, Todd Huff, back here in just a minute.
Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast and increase your financial wisdom. You will find episodes about investments, the infinite banking concept, how to fight inflation, the financial side of retirement, and financial questions Jesse asked his girlfriend. Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast on any podcast platform or watch it on YouTube. There are new episodes of the Wealth Talks podcast weekly. Search for Wealth Talks podcast online and subscribe for free.
Shooters, hunters, and outdoor enthusiasts, Emax Tactical has you covered. We offer specialty, exotic, and vintage ammunition you won't find anywhere else. Plus, field medical kits and civilian legal training. Emax Tactical is passionate about helping customers find exactly what they need. 90% of orders go out the same day. Visit Emax Tactical online and use code TODD for 10% off your first order. Visit us at emaxtactical.com. EMACStactical.com.
Looking for a knife that's more than just metal? The Rainy Forge handcrafts blades in a real coal forge, the way they were meant to be made. Every knife is meticulously crafted, hair-popping sharp, and built to last a lifetime. From hunting to cooking, we've got a blade for you. Affordable heirloom quality. Visit therainyforgeblacksmith.com and click Buy a Knife to get started. The Rainy Forge, built with tradition, ready for your adventure.
Welcome back, my friends. Segment 2 here of Hour 1 of the program. This is a 2-hour program, by the way. If there's anything that you do miss during this program, if you're not able to listen to it in its entirety, I'll let it slide. My friends. You could always go to wherever you listen to podcasts and just search for The Todd Huff Show. You can go to our website, toddhuffshow.com, and we're going to start streaming the program on Rumble. I say going to start. We've actually put a pause in that. We've had some technical problems with audio feeding back into the recording device. And so I've got some technicians that are trying to fix this problem. We're on pause here. We're not recording or streaming, I should say, to Rumble today, but that will resume hopefully here imminently. So anyway, let's get back to this. When we left off, what we had was a scenario in 2020 that laid the groundwork for what we're dealing with today when Trump says, I'm not going to accept whatever Biden signed with this autopen. These pardons and so forth are null and void because Biden didn't know what was going on. And we were put here deliberately. Now, you could say, obviously, they didn't foresee this particular scenario 4 or 5 years ago, but they certainly understood. They, who do I mean by they? I mean the Democrat Party, the leadership. I don't mean the rank and file, people out there voting, people who believe this nonsense, people who are single-issue voters, people who are union Democrats who have more in common with me than they could ever possibly have in common with Nancy Pelosi and the radicals on the left. But I am talking about the leadership of the Democrat Party. I am talking about the big money. I am talking about the Obamas, the Soros factor, all these folks, some of which we don't even necessarily know some of these folks, but they made the call. Biden's the guy, get everybody else out. We cannot, we cannot put ourselves in a position where Bernie Sanders is the nominee. So they picked Biden. They gave everyone else these grandiose, promises. That's why Pete Buttigieg became the the Secretary of the Treasury, and that's why his name is still being considered here as a potential nominee for the Democrats in 2028. They all obliged. And now Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas as Trump calls her. By the way, I got to say this. Listen, my friends, this is true. I am documented by genealogists. Science has spoken. I am the 13th great-grandson of Pocahontas. I've got multiple family trees. We've had a genealogist that actually, my cousin had a genealogist who went, I believe, to England to trace the heritage of our family. They traced it back to 1160, which is really cool. But in that family tree, you'll find literally Pocahontas, her father, Powhatan, as well. And I'm the 13th great-grandson. So I have appointed myself, I'm self-appointed, to be the spokesperson for the Pocahontas family. We do not care. I'm speaking on behalf of the family. We don't care. We don't care when Trump calls Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. We don't see that as an insult to Pocahontas. What we see that as is an example, an illustration of just how much Elizabeth Warren relies upon, has built her career upon, fake news, and fake identity politics, pretending to be Native American, where the average American is more Native American than Pocahontas Elizabeth Warren is. But Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, was one of the people who was running for president back then. She was one that drug her feet the longest. She stayed in that race longer than Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. I'm forgetting another name or two. But that's what happened. That's what set the stage for where we are today. It set the stage for a president who was not equipped to be president of the United States. They knew it. They knew it in 2020, and they didn't care. They didn't care because they knew that they were going to be running things behind the scenes. In fact, in some way, it was kind of the perfect scenario. they had a puppet up there who didn't know what was going on. And I take zero pleasure in saying this. I don't agree with Biden politically. I think Biden did some bad things for a long time. I think that there's a lot of evidence about pay-to-play scandals and kickbacks and his being the big guy, Hunter Biden's laptop and all this stuff. I think that there's a whole lot of smoke there and probably a fire somewhere within there metaphorically as well. But I take no pleasure in his mental demise. It is sad. This is a real problem that people all across the political spectrum are dealing with around this country with dementia and Alzheimer's and all these other cognitive problems that people have as they age and as they have other problems that affect their bodies and so forth. I don't take any pleasure in this. It actually is quite sad that they would even do this. But of course, they're willing. I've got what I call the Seinfeld-Newman strategy, and that is simple. That is when they will do whatever it takes. This is from a Seinfeld episode. I'll do whatever it takes, as long as it takes me, so long as it takes you away from me. That's their approach to President Trump. They will do whatever it takes, as long as it takes them, so long as it takes Trump away from the White House, away from the presidency. They've sold their soul. They will do anything, emphasis on the word anything, even put a man in the Oval Office who doesn't even know what he's doing there. And that's what we had. That's what we had for 4 years. And it wasn't until they were exposed that they changed their tune. And this was in July when that first debate happened. And they decided to dump on Biden then. That's when you started seeing reports that were hidden from us as well that, oh yes, since the very beginning of Biden's administration, I was reading this morning, reports were that Biden was, people were trying to hide it. They were trying to deal with his cognitive decline, talking about when they could meet with him, talking about his having good days and bad days, talking about the just how they were going to respond and deal with the president as part of his administration, his staff, that didn't really know anything that was going on. And so it's in that environment that this little magical pen pops onto the scene. This magical pen, this virtual pen, this electronic pen that's now out there, and that we've discovered in recent days that this magical pen has been used to sign a huge chunk of documents by the president. And I use air quotes with my Seinfeld air quotes behind the microphone here. His signature, electronic signature on these documents. So let's go to this story, the New York Post. NewYorkPost.com. This is in the stack of stuff on our website at ToddHuffShow.com. Here we go. Biden sources suspect key aide may have abused, there we go, autopen as Trump's far more restrictive signing rules are revealed. So, there's someone within the Biden administration, according to the New York Post. They didn't name this person. This person is speaking on condition of anonymity. So, listen, I've got problems with this, but this is what's being reported. Let me read a portion of this article here. A key aide to former President Joe Bribery, that's my words, not the New York Post, may have exceeded their authority by liberally using an autopen to sign official documents, according to two former White House sources, as President Trump's aides set up far more restrictive rules governing the use of the mechanical device. A document obtained by the Post outlines the narrow set of circumstances in which Trump's signature can be affixed to documents, following the controversy this week kicked off by a Heritage Foundation analysis, that's the group that first discovered this, of Biden's signatures on various records, including last-minute pardons. A small group of officials under both Biden and Trump have been delegated the power to get documents signed robotically, but 82-year-old Biden's perceived cognitive decline sparked debate about whether some aides may have assumed his wishes in his final stretch as commander-in-chief. So you get to the end of the term, right? We've had 4 years of this that we know of. We don't know when the decline actually started, but you have people that were close to him. people that were working with him every day, him being President Joe Biden, they knew his condition. They saw it. They worked proactively to hide it from you, to hide it from me, to hide it from the American voter, the American taxpayer. And in the final days, they had access to this magical pen, and there is concern, and there are reports that it looks like Biden's aides could have potentially, I'm not making the claim here, I'm simply saying what's being reported, that there was one particular person who might have been signing these documents without Biden's consent, doing what that person thought Biden would want to do. So we'll get more into this after the break, my friend. Let me ask you this question, though, as we get to the end of this here, the second segment. Are you tired of spending your hard-earned money at businesses that turn around and support leftist causes? Friends, that's exactly why we created Freedom Marketplace. It is free. It is a searchable directory of businesses that share your conservative values, businesses that have vowed not to support leftist candidates or leftist causes. They've signed a pledge, in fact. They said, we're not going to support leftist candidates or causes. That's a requirement, a prerequisite for being listed at Freedom Marketplace. And now you can go there completely for free. There's no login required, no strings attached. It's just good, patriotic businesses that are pushing in the same direction as you. Check it out today. You can visit it, freedommarketplace.net. That's freedommarketplace.net. We own and operate this, by the way. Liberty and business for all. Quick timeout, my friends. Back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. I'm going to get through as much of this as I can, continuing this discussion about Biden's magic auto pen and the questions that have arisen concerning last-minute decisions made by Biden, allegedly, ostensibly, reportedly. But now there's questions about who is really making these decisions. You can see that we've got a perfect scenario, right? A perfect scenario for this to happen. Whether or not it actually happened, let's at least acknowledge that the conditions were there for this to take place. So, what do we have? We've got a guy who has been selected by the Democrat Party power brokers, President Biden. We have his decline in mental cognitive abilities to the point, at least by last summer, was undeniable by the media, by the radical left. They stopped trying to pretend that he was normal, and as far as his abilities were concerned, they basically threw Biden under the bus. That's why they replaced him with Kamala and all of that. Although it's interesting, they still didn't really fully admit it, but that's what was, of course, the catalyst here. So, you had 6 more months. I remember talking about this on the program. I remember Vivek Ramaswamy, who I like a lot. I remember a comment from him. He said we shouldn't be talking about removing Biden as president. This was in the months leading up to the election. Because he said, look, we don't want to put Kamala in as president and then have to run against her as kind of the incumbent. We don't want that scenario. Listen, I understand the political ramifications of that. But at the time, I remember saying, who's running this country? Who's making these decisions? This is all well and good that we're trying to do whatever we can to win this election. But my goodness, my friends, we've got someone at the helm who doesn't know what on earth is going on. It truly was the circumstance. It sounds insane that a group of sophisticated people here in the United States of America, technologically sophisticated, people who have been prosperous, but in many ways have been dumbed down and lied to. That was the condition. Those were the conditions, and we had someone running this country that didn't know what was going on. So then you fast forward to the final days, final weeks. You remember these last-minute pardons came truly at the last minute. So now we've got 4 full years minimum that it was known by Biden's handlers, almost 5 years at this point, that he was in serious mental decline. And they knew that there was a magical auto pen, and that's how things were being signed. And so, according to the New York Post story, Let me pick up where I left off. One Biden White House source told the Post, this is the New York Post, they suspect that a key aide to the then president may have made unilateral determinations on what to auto-sign. So you remember, if you listen to this program, some of you are new listeners, but many of you figured this out on your own as well. We were at a point in time where our country was being run, meetings were being had. A guy that's deemed to be unfit to be president in 2025 was at the helm at the end of 2024, and no one seemed to care. Who was making the decisions? Who was signing things? And now you've got someone who is a source at the Biden White House who told the media, the New York Post, that they suspect a key aide, this aide was not named in this story, was making these decisions unilaterally. Unilaterally, of course, meaning just on their own, and then signing them electronically, not even filling in the president at the time of the United States. The Post is not publishing that staffer's name due to the lack of concrete evidence and refutations by other colleagues. So other people are saying, no, that's not exactly what happened. And other people, there's not any other substantial evidence to support what this staffer is claiming. Well, I don't want to say no other evidence because we witnessed. Listen, folks, you witnessed some of the evidence. You witnessed some of the evidence of a man who was in the White House that couldn't complete a sentence, that couldn't walk upstairs, that couldn't walk off a stage, that couldn't stand and balance stationary while straddling a bicycle. You watched him fumble and speak in incoherent, incomplete sentences, rambling about things, losing his train of thought, and then pausing and saying things like, I don't want to, that's all I want to say about that. I don't want to get into that. I'll get in trouble, because he forgot what he was talking about, forgot what the Declaration of Independence was called. This wasn't just faux pas and slippages of the tongue and misspeaking and all that sort of stuff. Folks, I do that on this program. When you talk as much as I do, or you talk as much as a president does, you're going to say things incorrectly. This is well beyond that. Anybody who is fair-minded and free-thinking absolutely knows it. But there's just one person that's pointing this out. The Biden aide, going back to the article, who did not respond to requests for comment, would frequently make mention of what, quote, the boss wanted, the source said, but compatriots would have, quote, no idea if it was true because the internal culture was not to ask questions. This person said, I feared no one as much as I feared that staffer, unnamed staffer. To me, that staffer basically was the president, the person said. No one ever questioned the staffer, period. I mean, it sounds like a healthy environment, right? So that's what we've got. And as such, Trump has said these last-minute pardons, not going to happen, because we don't even know that Biden signed them. So at the end of the hour, my friends, you can hear the music. I'm going to get to that in the next hour. Sit tight, my friends. Thanks for listening, SDG.
Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast and increase your financial wisdom. You will find episodes about investments, the infinite banking concept, how to fight inflation, the financial side of retirement, and financial questions Jesse asked his girlfriend. Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast on any podcast platform or watch it on YouTube. There are new episodes of the Wealth Talks podcast weekly. Search for Wealth Talks podcast online and subscribe for free.
Tired of store-bought produce? Ever dreamed of growing your own healthy food but worried about space? Exo Hydroponics is a perfect solution. Exo Hydroponics is a family-owned business run by a mother and daughter team. Their innovative Exo Tower lets you grow up to 28 plants indoors or out, using less than 2 square feet. Visit exotowers.com today and start your journey to growing fresh organic food at home. That's exotowers.com.